Hello, everybody. It is really good to see everyone. See you and your note takers as always. And I'm really excited today because Emma and I actually connected at a Women in Tech conference. And I think from the moment I saw you, Emma, I just thought, wow, this woman has got so much energy and so much genuine interest in everybody around her and in projects and in promoting people who are looking for opportunities in tech. And you were just somebody that I was drawn to right from the start, Emma. So I'm really, really excited that you're joining us today. Thank you so much. So I'm going to let Emma be introducing herself in a little bit more detail just now. And for now, I know that for those of you who know me, you know that I'm normally training companies on how to attract and select the best people for their teams. And I'm also doing lots of training around change management at the moment, which is really exciting to branch into that. And performance management, it's that time of year, so people are also interested in that topic. And Emma and I both have our links in the LinkedIn chat. So please, if anybody wants to add their LinkedIn profiles to the chat, please do so. Please share where you're joining from today. We're really excited that you're joining us. So, and there I see Huda as well, another person who was with us on that day and who has been with us in our last masterclass and who I keep seeing cold water swimming. But Emma, you have got so many amazing titles on your LinkedIn profile and so many exciting things that you've done. And I know that we've got you here under the topic today of rethinking inclusion and what neurodiversity looks like at work. So please give us a little bit of an overview of what you do and why you do it, just to start us off in getting to know you.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. And thanks to Jane for creating this opportunity for me to share my story. Hopefully, there'll be something that you can pick up there that can inspire you in your own corner. So, I grew up in Limpopo, just so you know, rural Limpopo, the villages. And I lived through the Northwest and Northern Cape and studied at Cape Tech. That's what it was called back then. And I've been here since for about over 20 years now. So yeah, so I worked in corporate from IT to engineering, energy, and my last role was in a global FMGC company where I learned the ropes of business. So essentially, I'm a mom of two and a wife as well. And I run Kids Innovate Africa, which is a social enterprise. At Kids Innovate Africa, we offer robotics, animation, game development for K-12. So that's essentially 5 to 18-year-olds. We have a center in Sandown, which is where I am now. And within our organization, Kids Innovate Africa, we have a social enterprise. So we have a social initiative called Robotics with Neurodiverse. And that's where we work with learners on the spectrum or learners that are neurodivergent. Essentially, your future Bill Gates, hopefully, your future, I would like to say Elon Musk and Richard Branson, because all those guys are neurodivergent to some extent. So that's what we do here. And my passion project is in girls in robotics, where we empower adolescent girls essentially with a mentorship and tech skills development, girls from marginalized communities. And it's me in a nutshell.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Emma. I
Yeah.
really love that you've already linked neurodiversity to success and
Mm.
to thinking differently and doing things differently. Um, and I'm wondering along the way, when you said you were in corporate and then you made that shift. So, is there a moment that kind of sparked an interest in neurodiversity that you can remember? When did that happen for you?
Neurodiversity in particular. So, yeah, it's a bit of a long story, and I keep saying it all the time, but it's a beautiful story worth sharing nonetheless. So, when I quit corporate 2019, 2021, 2022, I had the privilege of working with learners on the spectrum, essentially doing robotics and coding. And I believe at that point, what the parents were looking for was something to keep their active or maybe hyperactive children focused on something meaningful and something useful. And so I had about three to four learners. They were quite young, under grade 3. And but what that was more of a turning point for me was Owen. So Owen came to our workshop. He had a brain injury, from what I remember, but I didn't know until later on when Mummy explained. So Owen came with his brother, Ethan. So Mummy came to drop Ethan. Ethan was like 11 years old, I think, in 2022. And when she dropped Ethan, I saw this little boy with glasses and he looked very curious. And I asked him, welcome, do you want to try? And he looked at mom and he looked at me and he wasn't sure what to say. Eventually, mommy said, no, he's fine. And I said, are you sure you don't want to try? And he said, maybe I want to. So mommy said, look, I'm going to be sitting by the cafe. If anything happens, please give me a call. I'm not going to go anywhere. I said, no, go to the shopping mall, go to the beach. We are not very far from Blowback Beach. And she says, no, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'll be here. Anything happens, give me a call. Long story short, when mommy came back 2 hours later, I saw somebody on the door and she was kind of teary. And I was, are you okay? She was shocked that her son, who is neurodivergent, is doing something. He looks so focused. But more than that, he was very calm. She couldn't believe that was her child. And that's when I came to learn Owen is neurodivergent. Obviously, he had a brain injury, which affected how he engages socially. He had a hearing aid, but also more often he is quiet. He gets anxious, and because he couldn't hear very well, he gets really upset. And for mom, it was much easier for her to be around her son herself, because that way you can kind of control what happens. She didn't feel comfortable leaving him anywhere else, or with, at least with us. So to hear that, see to watch her, watch her son and hear her relating the story, that she just couldn't believe that, her son was so focused and there was nothing that was wrong that went, there was nothing that went wrong when she was away. She decided to enroll him. And so we had him for almost a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very insightful. Yeah,
That's
if
such
I
an
may.
inspiring story, Emma.
Yeah. So maybe I may just to wrap up this answer, that it was so
Yeah.
insightful, such that my team and I got curious to say there's something here. So thanks to the support of the SAB Foundation, we commissioned an academic study with UCT, with the objective was to help us substantiate the impact of educational robotics or hands-on activities on neurodivergent learners, with the sole objective of highlighting how it affects their interpersonal skills, things like self-belief, how they communicate with others, confidence, and a few others. So that's kind of how we started.
I love that, Emma, because when people have confidence and they are able to engage with others, that sets them up to be able to use their talents in the workplace and make a meaningful contribution instead of shrinking back. So, in advance, thank you for the work you do and are doing. And I'm wondering, along the way, as you started Kids Innovate Africa and Girls in Robotics, how did starting those organizations and initiatives shape what you believed was important about inclusion when it came to working with neurodivergent individuals?
Yeah, so it shaped it quite a bit, because when I left corporate, and I think um, maybe to just give you some insight in terms of how I came into this field, um, there wasn't a lot of people that look like me. So when I took my kids to center where they got exposed to robotics, and I didn't see a lot of kids that look like my kids. That's when I saw an opportunity. And I thought, I'm a first generation graduate from my family. And I figured there's quite a few first generation graduates in the Black community, which was my original focus market when I started the organization. I figured that, I will not be short of customers, and I'll be able to find people, the paying customers. So that's what inclusion meant to me there, right? When I started, because I was kind of looking at my children and maybe even other people from Black communities in particular. And
Yeah.
so with neurodiversity now, the focus kind of broadened out a little bit, right? It's no longer about inclusion as it relates to color. It now, for me, what it means, it relates to the diversity of the mind, the diversity of the brain, but also through other initiatives, the gender diversity. So for me, I see it as an opportunity um, to cultivate talent from the grassroots level, talent
Mm-hmm.
that will contribute to, I don't know, like the skills power of an economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking currently in South Africa, we're not performing very well. We're not doing too badly, but there's a huge room for improvement as far as diversity in the workplace. We don't hear of a lot of neurodivergent people in the workplace, but what that essentially means is that companies are missing out on an opportunity to gain a competitive advantage, because if you're familiar with neurodiversity or neurodivergence, you would notice that there's different strengths that
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergent people have, to a varying degree. If you're in the tech space, for example, and you need a software developer or you need a tester, um, inherent in some of our neurodivergent people is the ability to be hyper focused, pay attention to details, pick up errors or bugs in the code that your neurotypicals might not necessarily be able to pick up. So if you don't have all of this variety of talent, you're missing out on talent
Yeah.
that can grow your business, talent that can increase, help you increase your revenue. It also gives you a competitive advantage ultimately for the country as well.
Absolutely, Emma. And I think, as South Africans, we have worked on diversity for a number of years. And as you say, starting racially, also looking at gender and people with disabilities. And in the neurodivergent space, which I think is becoming more and more a hot topic with companies, I'm hearing you say you've seen corporates hold back and not really recognize the skills that come with somebody who's neurodivergent that will actually produce a more successful outcome in some roles than somebody who is not. And in your view, and with those you've encountered in the workplace, what do you think some of the fears or concerns are that perhaps hold employers back from opening their arms wide to neurodivergent candidates and saying, come join our team. We really believe you can add value.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like the way you are unpacking it, Jane, and I think lots of companies are in the same boat, and generally because of lack of awareness or understanding, people might look at it as a risk, indeed, right? But as leaders, we need to stop seeing the differences as risks. We need to start seeing them as a potential. Right? So every neurodivergent person that you meet or that you could potentially hire, they have an opportunity to bring unique strengths and perspectives that can spark creativity and innovation in your own company. And it's all about curiosity as well, asking how can this person's way of thinking help the team instead of just worrying about what might go wrong. And I
Yeah.
must mention, I think I've talked to you about this, Jane, last week, that we have a neurodiversity podcast called Beyond the Box. You can check it out on
Mm-hmm.
Spotify or YouTube. Where
Mm-hmm.
we recently featured a parent who is a leading medical doctor and she's got an MBA, but she's also dyslexic, right? She said something that really changed how I think about language. She said, it's not about making accommodations, right? Sometimes
Mm.
we may actually need, if you're a parent or your mom with kids or a dad, you may have to pick up your kids from school. Or maybe you may need to have a few naps at work during the day to just help you come down or to regulate if you're a neurodivergent employee. So she said, my line manager doesn't accommodate me. My line manager facilitate me so that I can perform at my best. I don't know
Mm.
what you're picking up from there, but
Yep.
it shouldn't it shouldn't be about accommodation. It should be about
Mm.
facilitation.
Yeah, I
That
love that.
yes, it hit me, Jane. It hit me quite differently because what it means is line manager or recruiters or leaders, we can see ourselves as facilitators.
Mm.
Facilitators in a sense that we're creating conditions for the team to thrive. How do we get the most out of everybody's strength? And look
Mhm.
at ourselves as enablers of people
Yes. Yeah.
rather than the
Yeah.
fixers.
Yeah, so I think it also really talks to the name of your podcast, Beyond the Box. And yes, I'm also from Outer Box Thinking. So it's not
Yeah.
about saying we've got this box, how do we make everyone fit in? But it's
Uh-huh.
saying we've got these people and we really do recognize the value they can add. So we want them in our team. So how are
Mm.
we going to facilitate a team environment where every person has the opportunity to thrive and
Yeah.
not stick to what we already have and expect people have to fit in order for the team to thrive? I mean, I think
Yeah.
we're talking about where we're trying to loosen education from the industrial revolution age. We're trying to loosen so much from the different economies we've had before, where we're no longer in a knowledge economy, for example. And we're
Yeah.
saying employers want to employ people who are curious. And I love your point that we as employers also need to be curious about how can this person add value and not we have boxes, but we want to employ curious people.
Yeah.
So I really love what you shared there.
Mm.
And what tough moments have you had along the way, Emma, as you have been starting these organizations and initiatives or advocating for inclusion or the value that neurodivergent individuals can add? What's come up?
Yeah, social entrepreneurship is not easy. Like, quitting. If you're in a work environment, you have the security of a job. The paycheck is coming every month. And whether you're sick or not, you're able to go to work or not, the paycheck is coming. But in social entrepreneurship, it can be a very delicate balance. But also, it's the external factors like the economy or performance of the economy change that could affect the sustainability of the business. But also something important to mention as a woman or female social entrepreneur is that as women we kind of naturally focus on the heart, right? I don't know if anybody in the room can relate to this.
I'm
um
that way.
we ne- yeah, we focus on the heart, and sometimes sustainability can get overlooked. That when and in our case, we've had challenges with where we offered more sponsorships to neurodivergent learners, just because we are very curious. We're fascinated by their approach and their perception or their perspective on things, that we want to make sure we have more of them at our center. So as the economical conditions of their families change, we found that we kind of absorbed some of the sponsorship costs, which really we absorb them more. We absorbed more than we can afford, essentially making it hard for us to making sustainability, financial sustainability for that matter, a little bit more challenging. And in this, I want to share this story which we talk about, and this is something that happened this year, where a kid we've had for about a year at one of the inclusive school came to us and said, my parents said I can't come here anymore because they can't afford and maybe I'll come back next year. And then we had to, when I got the report from the coaches, I had to think about it again, thinking with the heart. And I said, we can't have the work that we've done with this child go to waste. As I've mentioned, our robotics with neurodiverse looks at, the self-belief of the child, the communication skills, the confidence, but also we're exposing them to what's happening globally, even as young as they are. We're exposing them to what's happening globally in the STEM field. Just recently, they were discussing the Hyperloop train that China is testing now in the market. So just to give you an idea. So, but then that gives them opportunity to kind of share their ideas, feel, develop that confidence, reassure them that their opinions do matter, and get to kind of encourage them to speak up when they've got opinions or things to share. So this kid said that's the following week. You know what? I saved 1,200 Rand. I think I can pay for a few months for myself because my parents can't afford.
Wow.
That touches your heart because this is, like a grade 4 kid. You can see they want to do this so badly, but the parents can't afford, and they're thinking to take their savings of 1,200 Rand to pay for our services. So we had no choice but to let the child, to sponsor the child. So it's essentially moments like that remind me how much these kids love our hands-on activities and the nurturing space that we create. And we can't let financial barriers interrupt their learning because, as I said, it will undo the progress that our coaches have done. But really, those are some of the challenges, pushing ahead and ensuring that there is sustainability to the work that we do.
Sure. Thank you for your heart, Emma. It's obvious that it just overflows and you're making such a difference. And those kids, as I say, I just see the difference that you're making in those early years enables them to really take hold of a career later on and add their skills and add value and who knows what they'll be coming up with that other people might not have. So
Yeah.
and I hear you are an advocate, and you definitely are not somebody who keeps your voice local. And you also were on a UN panel. So please tell us a little bit more about that. How did you connect to that panel? What were you sharing? How does that link to your work?
Yeah, sure. I just realized that inclusion is so much broader than what we often talk about. And when I was included to work with the UN, it was such a humbling moment for me personally. Um, I felt really honored because it's not every day that, you get to work with the United Nations. And so, they obviously gave me an opportunity. It was right after I returned from Tanzania, where I got training by UN Women for a very important project that they're doing called African Girls Can Code Initiative, where I had an opportunity to meet my counterparts from the African Union, the countries within the African Union, where we got trained together. So I had an opportunity to join a global panel with UN Women on African leadership for gender transformative education. That was in 2022. So something I'm really still deeply thankful for because that spoke to my passion, my love for working with girls. And when I look at working with girls, for example, I look at it as I'm giving back something that I would have loved to have received when I was a young girl in the village back then, which is why this program is very important. And so, so I think there was a few countries from developing world. I mean, there was Mexico. I remember there was Brazil. I don't remember other countries, but it was a humbling moment that I had to do. That I had to deliver that discussion essentially.
Wow.
And yeah.
Yeah, well done, Emma. That is very exciting. And I love how you even take that humbling moment, as you say, of someone gave me an opportunity into, okay, how can I give others opportunities?
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, that word really stuck with me, what you said about employers, leaders, managers facilitating the integration of neurodiverse individuals into their teams. And I'm wondering whether you have any ideas or practical tips that you've seen managers and leaders, employers do to facilitate that inclusion. Do you have any more
Hmm.
details on what that looks like?
Yes, I mean, we I'm just gonna tell you about what we've been doing because we have had I think we still have colleagues that are neurodivergent. But I can tell you is we, the practices that we have applied, we haven't always gotten it right. But I think
Mm,
what's important is to stay open to learning, to engaging, but also to communicating clearly. Sometimes that means writing things down so that the colleagues that are neurodivergent can have something to refer back to. As far as instructions are concerned, right? Because sometimes people can forget what they have been asked to do. So having the patience to write things down, but also to remind if there's a need to do so. One of the things that we do, what that we really appreciate here, and that our neurodivergent colleagues appreciate, is having a quiet space. I don't know if you can see right behind me a sensory cave. This is used by our students, particularly who are neurodivergent, but also their colleagues. So essentially means when there's overstimulation, maybe because of the lighting in the office, or because of too much noise or a lot of movement, a colleague can kind of dash out into a sensory cave and close themselves
mm,
and have some peace of mind or use it as a way of regulating themselves. And other things is allowing colleagues to wear noise cancelling headphones. Just let them be themselves. If you're trying to reach out to them and they can't hear you because they've got noise cancelling headphones, understand that having that means they can perform at their best, essentially. And I remember one colleague also who would walk past without greeting anyone in the morning. An amazing young woman who is autistic. And so, but it's important that understanding that, working in and not greeting colleagues, it might be difficult to accept as neurotypicals, but understanding that this person is, their brain works differently in their way of thinking. Greeting people is not such a big deal. So there needs to be a level of understanding that we don't take it personally when people come and don't greet. You can take initiative and greet them, make them feel welcome. Don't make them feel awkward for not greeting you, something as simple as that. So essentially, creating a space where our neurodivergent colleagues don't feel that, they're being fixed, that, they need to be fixed for being different. But I also know in bigger organizations, there's opportunity to provide therapists. If they feel they need somebody that they can talk to about the challenges that they're facing, or maybe they're a little bit more anxious naturally because of the way their brain is wired, making therapies available in the work environment, or having a contact line that they can call when they feel like they need support. So kind of like simple things like promoting awareness about neurodiversity in the workplace so that the colleagues understand that we, just as we have people that are green or yellow or orange, or people that speak Setswana, Xhosa, Afrikaans, Zulu, we also have people whose brain is wired differently, and doesn't mean it's wrong the way their brain is wired. It's just different.
mm-hmm.
So promoting
Yeah.
awareness in the work environment, it removes the stigma, and contribute to a healthier and more inclusive work environment.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. But also, if I
Mm,
may add, Jane, that supporting
yes.
neurodiverse team members and achieving organizational goals cannot be separate, right? They go hand in hand. And
Mhm.
it's important to look at it as inclusion is not a compromise, it's a multiplier.
Yes, because I do think that is a concern that often comes up is we're going to have to lower our standards or go slower in a negative way. If we're going to take on someone, it's almost like a charity mindset
Yeah.
of let's kind of, have our community project person on the side. But actually, we would all want to be the same and move because then we could go faster, better without them. So I love that you're
Mm.
saying it's not that mindset. It's not that
Mm.
you can do better with that person. It shouldn't be seen as, oh, this is a ball and chain.
Yeah. And you remember that example I gave you earlier with Dr. Hafiza. We interviewed her last week as part of our podcast, and literally the way she said it, and I think that's if you can take anything away from here, this is what you should take away. It really opened my mind. And she said, it's not about accommodations, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
accommodations mindset makes business leaders or people in business think, we now have to accommodate that, we have to do that, let's just do it just so we can tick the box. It's about
Mm-hmm.
facilitations, she said. Facilitating, creating an environment where I think I did mention earlier, example of a mother, I've got kids that are going to school. Facilitate, create an environment where I can go fetch them at 2:30 when they get out from school and take them home. If you allow me to do that, you're going to get the best out of me, right? If you allow a neurodivergent to have a napping time to nap, or you have a sensory quiet room, and they just go there for 15 minutes, or they just go take a nap for 15 minutes, when they come back, they will hit the targets for you. So it's about facilitating, creating an environment where everybody can thrive.
Yes. And as you say, Emma, it's not only the neurodivergent individuals who need differences in the working environment to thrive. I mean, when you
Mm.
mentioned about communication and following up meetings or discussions with written communication and clarifications, I'll find that in every company. It's not just with a
Yeah.
neurodivergent individual.
Yeah.
Everybody, everyone needs clarification. Everyone needs to make sure they're on the same page. Or even with the headphones, I was speaking to someone the other day about them coming into the workplace as kind of younger generations and saying they actually work better with headphones that create noise because they're so used to so much sensory input that they actually
Yeah.
with more noise than less. So
You know,
it's not
uh,
neurodivergent.
you're right. I'm laughing because as we were speaking earlier, I've got one of my colleagues in the office there, and he always has these headphones. And not only does he have these headphones, he listens to really loud music. Sometimes we can hear it, even though we don't have the headphones on. And sometimes he sings, right? And that's how he gets his creativity going. Like as we're speaking, I could hear him singing, and I'm thinking, should I remind him that I can hear him this side? So you're absolutely right. It's creating an
Yeah,
environment where either the neurotypical or the neurodivergent can thrive
yeah,
and grow the
yeah.
business.
But Emma, on that as well, when would you say to an employer that trying to bring a neurodivergent individual into their team is not a good idea? It would actually not benefit the team. It might not be the right fit. Are there situations like that where you would say, not ever or not now?
Mm.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think the important thing is to focus on the role, not the label, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the job aligns with a neurodiverse person's strength, it can be a game changer for both the company, but also for the individual and the team as well. So that said, it's not about hiring someone just to tick a box. A fit matters, as you say, as you're trying to bring out. A good fit between the organization and the person matters quite a bit. So what
Mm,
we need to do is to make sure that the role that the job that needs to get done, the environment, but also the support structure, all of these elements are right for
mm,
you to hire the person who's neurodivergent. And if those are not yet right, I would recommend you pause or maybe take some time to learn and understand the neurodiversity a little bit more, right?
mhm,
Because when these three things are aligned, the role, the environment, and the support structure, you can actually unlock unique perspectives, the creativity and
mhm,
the talent that can take your team to a whole new level, essentially. So, in a situation where it might not be kind of the right fit, not because somebody is neurodivergent, but because the role or the environment doesn't match their strength or their needs. So that's some things that one should think about. So if the job, for
yeah,
example, requires a constant multitasking, and one has to work under high stress levels without flexibility or support, it may not allow them to thrive. So we ideally want to be cautious in those situations because fit
mm,
matters just as much as the talent. So the key
yeah.
really is creating roles and environment where their skills can shine in a way that both the organization can benefit, but also the person can benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And Emma, I think as you were speaking, it brought to mind that I think that's a cycle that every new inclusion creates, because we even
Mm,
saw when people started to create teams and include different races or include people with disabilities or include females in roles where they weren't included before. In the beginning, there was that uncomfortable, we'll include you because we have to be inclusive, but that person didn't always feel that they were there to add value. Sometimes I've heard feedback from people of all races, feel like, I feel like I'm just here as a token, and the environment doesn't allow me to thrive. And that hurts the employer and their brand, as well as the individual and their confidence and their career path. So with every sphere where we're looking to be inclusive, it's not just about, as you say, the piece to be included, it's about our mindset,
yeah.
constantly being people who are not biased, not thinking in the box,
Mm.
really being inclusive.
Absolutely.
Any
And
final, sorry, go for it, yeah?
yeah, no, I'm just thinking now in the context of our robotics with neurodiverse initiative, which I think if you're an employer, there's something you can take from our approach. For example, we largely we service the neurotypicals. Obviously, that's how we started with the organization back in 2019. But with the robotics with neurodiverse, it brought the neurodivergent students in. So there was a time when we had the neurotypicals come at a specific time, like an earlier time slot, and the neurodivergents would come in slightly later. But these two groups, the reason why we separated them, obviously it was a learning moment, is that we knew that the neurotypicals were very loud. When maybe they manage to fix a code or their robot design works really well, that they will get so excited and they'll be kind of, our learning space, it's like an orchestra, it's a movement of things, it's this excitement, there's communication, there's people are moving around. So we thought separating them would help because our neurodivergence, they need, obviously that was limited knowledge that we had at that time, that it needs to be very structured. Everything has to move according to time, but also there mustn't be noise. It must be reasonably very quiet. Um, then I think about 6 months later, when we brought them together, um, the neurotypicals, they didn't know that the other group was a neurodivergence group, which we were, by the way, doing research with UCT, running an academic study with, right? And so when they started to learn, when we brought them together, we started to talk about it, neurodiversity, quite openly. So what is autism? When somebody is autistic, what does it mean? So you hear the neurotypicals talk and the neurodivergence talk. And then, so that's such a powerful thing when you bring them together because it means there's more empathy, there's more understanding. But also, if you're looking at the long term and the bigger picture, one day these learners will become colleagues or maybe even direct reports or business partners. It will make a work environment just so much better when you have mindful leaders that understand, that there's a diversity of the mind and how to operate or tap into the strengths of each mind. So one of the
Mm.
things when we were doing this education thing, again, promoting awareness in the work environment would benefit companies that want to kind of tap into the asset that neurodiversity is in the workplace. So this grade 3-year-old, I mean grade 3, not a 3-year-old, said, can you talk to us? What are some of the misconceptions about people that have ADHD? And this little boy Noah said, people think we are naughty or we can't sit still. And I said, why? And he said, because we're always tapping. Sometimes you'll hear, right? The tap with the feet, or maybe even with a pen, which you can find really annoying sometimes. But that's how that student regulate themselves. So this little 3-year-old said, people think we are naughty or we like to make noise or disrupt. But that's how that helps me. When I tap, I feel better, right? And then the other one who was grade 5, I just don't remember his name. He said, always be kind because you don't know what other people are going through. And this is like an autistic
Wow.
child. Imagine a kid like that
Love
as your
that.
colleague in
Mm-hmm.
future. So it's so
Love that.
powerful.
So powerful, so mature for that age.
Mm,
Many adults
yeah.
can learn from that. And what a beautiful attitude to life and people.
Mm.
Sure, Emma. So, yes, I know that you are also on your way to go and work at a school this afternoon. So, any final tips for people who want to be more inclusive or are thinking, we'd really like to include more neurodiversity in our teams? We want to see the value that it adds to the organization. Any final tips or thoughts that you'd like to leave with everyone?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would like to encourage you. I know, you don't have to you shouldn't have a perfection mindset when you try some of these things, because as I said earlier, when we started, there were moments where we got it wrong and it's a learning process. So one of the things I would say is, you know, learn to listen first. And I mean, really listen, right? Listening can be a challenge for most of us, but you can make an effort to listen to your colleagues about what works for them, what conditions work for them, and what don't. But also be open about not accommodation, what facilitation, to what extent are you willing to facilitate such that an environment is suitable for the talent that you're trying to get into your organization. So,
Mm.
like here, we have an open communication policy. We always assume good intent. This is something I learned during my leadership training when I was in San Francisco 3 years ago from a leadership coach, Natasha. She said, always assume good intent.
Love
Also,
that.
quit taking things personally. You know how sometimes somebody steps on you and you're just sitting there, I believe they stepped on me. They're trying to harm me, right? It can be easy to take things personally, but always assume good intent, right? That's one. And so what we do also here is we show that we care by talking openly and respectfully without worrying that people will take things personally. We talk things through and we move on. We don't hold on to negative emotions about our colleagues, right? And as leaders or people who have the privilege to lead, you also have to pay attention to the vibe that you bring to the workplace. And I'm thankful that I work with young people. They kind of always remind me, are you okay? I have to check my vibe every now and then. Because if you're feeling low or you're feeling frustrated, it's important to be honest with the team so that they don't internalize it or
Mhm.
take it personally. One thing that I learned from the leadership coaching that I got, a performance leadership coach at the SAB Foundation, is that you must celebrate every win, right? No matter how small it is, you need to celebrate it, acknowledge each person's contribution to the team's goals, and make sure that they are aware that they're being celebrated and they're being acknowledged for their contribution. But also, as a manager, you should recognize the responsibility that you have to lead. It's not about the title, right? You have an opportunity to empower your team in ways that you may never imagine. Just to give you an example, we had a young lady who left, and I think I told you about this, Jane, who said, her name was Amelia, that, you know, I love being in this place. In fact, she was crying that I have never felt so accepted in my life, not even within my own family, for who I am. And she's autistic, and it touched my heart that we are so open to recognizing that our actions can really impact other people in ways that we didn't anticipate or we couldn't anticipate. So always recognize the privilege that you have as a leader to impact somebody's life positively. But also be
Yes.
open to knowing. Sorry, did I interrupt?
No, I was just agreeing and listening and loving what you're saying. Please continue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to kind of remember that you don't know everything, right? And we don't want to obsess with getting everything right. I think what's
Mm,
key is stay open to learning from your direct reports. And the thing of saying, what do my direct reports know? I'm the boss. I know everything. It's like old mindset, right? You should learn from young people. You should learn from everybody. It doesn't matter whether they're junior to you. There's a lot you can learn. So yeah, but also small
mm,
gestures, being open and genuinely respecting other people go a long way in helping people feel that they belong and that they can contribute fully.
mm. Oh, I love everything that you've said, Emma. And it is so much about the attitude and the mindset that we go in with, something that's not fixed, open, willing to learn. I love those reminders about not taking things personally. And for me, it just takes me back to your grade five friend who just said, always be kind.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you listen to these conversations, Jane, of these primary schoolers, you literally, the way it touches your heart because they're so small. And some of them have been bullied and bullied at school
Mm,
because of being different, right? Because some of them
yeah.
might not, they might be going through a speech therapist. Maybe their words, don't come out really well, or maybe they're dyslexic and they can't quite read the way neurotypical student would read. Being kind helps you recognize that, we're all humans. We're just different.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all have weaknesses. Maybe it's
Yes.
not dyslexia, but it'll be
Yeah.
something else. So
Mhm.
we all need
Mhm.
kindness.
Absolutely.
So, Emma, thank you so, so much for joining us today. This has been so valuable. And the people who've had to drop off a little bit earlier have said thank you so much. They found this so valuable.